Some of the Secret Service agents thought the gunfire, however, was from an automatic weapon fired to the right rear of the chief executive's car, possibly from a grassy knoll, and that's that knoll to which motorcycle policemen were seen racing, and where the huddled figures of a man and a woman were seen on the ground with a crowd surrounding them, which suggests, of course, that perhaps this is where the shots came from. This we do not know as yet positively.
Now, this is one of the overhead walkways and railroad trestles under which the presidential car had to go. At first, it was thought that the assassin's bullet might have been fired from one of those walkways or railroad trestles, but the current most popular theory is that the assassin's bullet was fired from the upper story of a building. Gave reporters some early details. These were long moments at Parkland Hospital as everyone waited for word on how is the president. Hospital sources gave this report of the arrival at the emergency entrance to the hospital, and I quote from the hospital: "The president was lying motionless in the car. Mrs. Kennedy was leaning over him, holding him. Governor Connolly was leaning back in the seat, holding his stomach. Both men were covered with blood. Inside the emergency room, witnesses said the First Lady, splattered with blood, entered without a word. Mrs. Kennedy reportedly held up very well inside. She was heard only to say, 'Jack, Jack, no, no.' Even regular hospital attendants were barred admittance to the emergency room as a bevy of doctors worked frantically over President Kennedy."
But he did marry while in Russia and is said to have 1 or 2 children. His wife is in this country with him and was taken to the police station this afternoon also. Oswald worked in the building where the murder weapon, a German-made Mauser rifle, was discovered. Oswald has been active in propaganda activities, as Bob Jones from station WWL-TV in New Orleans reports.
This is Lee H. Oswald, October 16th in New Orleans, when he was handing out handbills for the Fair Play for Cuba Committee in front of the International Trade Mart. New Orleans police know Oswald well. On August 9th, he was arrested for disturbing the peace by creating a scene on the city's main Canal Street by also distributing these handbills. He resided in an apartment here from May 9th until August 20th, when he slipped out in the middle of the night without having paid his rent. The apartment manager said he was quiet and talked to no one. They found several of these pamphlets lying around the apartment after he had left. This is Bob Jones, WWL-TV in New Orleans.
By strange coincidence, since 1840, beginning with Benjamin Harrison, over our last 8 presidents who assumed office on the even years, 2 decades apart, have died in office. And of the nation's 35 presidents, 4 have died of assassins' bullets. President Lincoln in 1865, Garfield in 1881, McKinley in 1901, and John F. Kennedy today.
We interrupt this program to bring you further details on the shooting of President Kennedy. After the shots were fired and the president was seen to slump over and Governor Connolly was hit, the motorcade sped on toward the hospital. It took them perhaps 5 minutes to reach the ambulance entrance of the hospitals. Reporters there say the president was lying flat on his face in the car. A man and woman were seen scrambling on the upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass from which they believe the shots were fired. The upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass from which they believe the shots were fired. The upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass from which they believe the shots were fired. The upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass from which they believe the shots were fired.
Thank you, David. This seems tangential and hardly important, but it is reported. The stock exchange closed operations after word of the attempt on President Kennedy's life, and the cotton and wool exchanges also closed. I see. Now we are returning to Dallas, Fort Worth, to station WBAP-TV and newsman Tom Whalen. Again, experiencing difficulties. We will, however, make the switch when we can. Here again is what we know so far. President Kennedy has been wounded in an assassination attempt. He is reported in very serious and critical condition. He has been given a blood transfusion. He is being treated at Parkland Memorial Hospital in Dallas, Texas, where the attack took place. There are reports in Dallas that a young man has been taken into custody but there are no indications that he has been charged with anything. He is insisting he had nothing to do with the attempt on the president's life.
Yes, Bob.
Now, for late details, we go to newsman Tom Whalen at WBAP-TV, Fort Worth.
Hang on.
This is Tom Whalen in Fort Worth. WBAP newsman James Darnell in Dallas on the scene of the presidential shooting, the shooting in which President Kennedy and Governor Connally were shot, has an eyewitness interview with a Mrs. Jean Hill. Here is the interview.
What is your name, ma'am?
Jean Hill.
From Dallas?
That's right.
And did you see the shooting, miss?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what happened?
Yes, sir.
Will you do that now?
They were driving along, and we were the only people in this area on our side, and the shots came from directly across the street from us. And just as the president's car became directly even with us, we took one look at him, and he was sitting there. He and Jackie were looking at a dog that was in the middle of the seat, and about that time, 2 shots rang out just as he looked up. Just as the president looked up, and these 2 shots rang out, and he grabbed his chest, and it looked like he was in pain, and he fell over in the seat, and Jackie fell over on him and said, "My God, he's been shot." And after that, more shots rang out, and the car sped away.
Now, what kind of a car was that?
What kind of a car was it? The president.
Well, I mean, where did the shots come from?
The shots came from the hill.
From a hill?
Yes. As it was just east of the underpass.
Uh-huh. And,
we were on the south side.
Could you see, did you look up there where the shots came from, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Could you see anyone?
I thought I saw this man running, but I looked at the president, and for a while, and I looked up there, and I thought I saw a man running. And so, right after that, I guess I didn't have any better sense. I started running up there, too.
Uh-huh. And what is your name?
Jean Hill.
G-E-A-N?
J-E-A-N.
J-E-A-N. What's your address, Miss Hill?
9402 Bluff Creek.
9402 Bluff.
That was an interview I had with Mrs. Jean Hill of Dallas a few minutes ago.
President Johnson is under heavy guard and was whisked away from the hospital by White House officials. President Kennedy, we are now informed, was shot in the right temple. It was a simple matter of a bullet right through the head, said Dr. George Berkeley, the White House medical officer.
Chet, we have more details, once again reestablishing contact with our station in Fort Worth, Dallas. And so, for additional information, we go to station WBAP-TV, Fort Worth, Dallas, and newsman Charles Murphy.
The car wanted in connection with the assassination of President Kennedy has been stopped in Fort Worth. Police report that the suspect in the shooting is in custody. Further word will come later. Fort Worth is 30 miles west of Dallas. Just a few minutes before this report, we heard from one of our newsmen in Dallas on the scene, James Kerr, who said that a Dallas policeman, J.D. Tippit, was shot to death by an unknown man in a car minutes after the president and Governor Connally were shot. The officer was shot about 2 miles from the scene of the presidential assassination. Repeating the first of this bulletin, the car wanted in connection with the assassination of President Kennedy has been stopped in Fort Worth. At an intersection, police reported that they had the suspect in the shooting on the ground. We hope further confirmation will come on this momentarily. This is Charles Murphy reporting from WBAP-TV, Fort Worth, Dallas.
Now, we have ready for you an eyewitness account of the assassination of President Kennedy. This was recorded, and the voice you will hear is that of an NBC sound man traveling with one of our television camera crews in the presidential trip to Texas. The sound is the voice of John Hofen.
Yes, Bob.
This is John Hofen of the NBC White House news crew traveling with the president in Dallas, Texas. We had just driven through the downtown section of Dallas, through the business area where the president had received a very tumultuous welcome. We're approaching a drive which would put us on a freeway where we would then drive to the trademark, where the president was to attend a luncheon and make a speech by the Dallas citizens. As we turned down this moderate curve here, there was a loud shot. At first we thought it was a cherry bomb by some teenager. Then it was immediately followed by 2 and 3 more. Everybody sort of ducked. Then there were people falling to the ground. We did not know who was shot. Ladies and men both were screaming. David Wigman, the cameraman in the car in which I was riding, immediately jumped out, was making pictures. We did not know who was hurt. When the president's car took off with the police escort and the Secret Service in a mad dash, which turned out to be towards the hospital. We picked up one of the remaining Secret Service men who had been left behind. He went with us in a mad frenzy in this motorcade behind the president's car. We were cleared through the police lines and finally got to the hospital. As we came down the final drive there behind the emergency entrance, we were told that we could not go any further, and we stayed outside and were kept informed by Malcolm Kilduff, the Associate News Secretary on the President's staff, of what was happening. As I left the hospital to come over here to this phone, which is approximately a block away, he whispered in my ear, he says, "John, we understand the President has died. Since waiting here on the phone, they have made announcements that he has died."
That was the recorded voice of John Hofen, an NBC sound man who was traveling with a television film unit in the presidential motorcade and who witnessed the assassination of President Kennedy. Now, Frank McGee, who has been keeping an open telephone line to the Parkland Memorial Hospital in Dallas, where President Kennedy died, is once again in touch with the NBC correspondent who was traveling with the president, Robert McNeil. Here now, Frank and his communications with McNeil.
Yes, Bob, I understand that they're clearing the room, so would you give us a report on what you can see from there now?
Well, President Kennedy's body, Frank,
President Kennedy's body.
is in the emergency section.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. I understand you can be heard directly now, so go right ahead with a straight report.
President Kennedy's body is in the emergency section of this hospital at the end of a long corridor. For the past 45 minutes, the corridor has been filled with bewildered-looking White House officials, hospital interns, reporters. Now police are clearing out the entire corridor, and we believe that the president's body is about to be brought out. A bronze coffin was taken in about 15 minutes ago, and that was shortly after White House Press Secretary Malcolm Kilduff had officially announced that the president died at 1 o'clock Dallas time, that is 2 o'clock New York time, after the shooting incident in downtown Dallas.
Bob, thank you very much. Does this mean you will have to leave this telephone?
I can hold on for a second here, Frank, I think.
Well, please do.
I'll hang on as long as I can.
Yes, as long as you can. And that's the word from Dallas, Bill, at this time.
Thank you very much, Frank. Merrill Muller, I think you have some additional detail here.
The flag at the White House has just been lowered to half-mast. We also have 2 eyewitness reports on the wire services. One eyewitness reporter, a television reporter named Mal Couch, said that he saw a gun emerging from the window of a warehouse. This warehouse was located just beyond a triple underpass through which the presidential motorcade had to go on its way into downtown Dallas. And just as the car emerged from the presidential car emerged from this underpass, 3 shots rang out. 3, not 2. We know that Mr. Kennedy was hit in the right temple and...
Frank is speaking to NBC correspondent Robert McNeil. They've been in constant telephonic communication since the story first broke. Robert has been working at the hospital, and of course you can appreciate that there are times when he will be off gathering information, other times when he will come back to the phone to report to us. And so from time to time, Frank and he will confer as to whether or not he has new information that he can add to what we already know about what happened in
Bob,
Dallas
if you'll
today.
stand by just a moment. Bill, unless you have some late information.
I have not, sir. No, go right ahead.
Bob was just talking with me about the contrast and attitudes of the president's arrival and the mood that now prevails in Dallas, and I think this might be of some interest. So, Bob, if you'll go ahead, I believe he can be heard on the air now.
I think he can, yes, Frank.
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
How extraordinary the contrast was. When the President and Mrs. Kennedy arrived at the airport, there was a crowd of many hundreds, and Mrs. Kennedy, following the practice she's developed the last couple of days, took the initiative in going over to the fence, and she and the President walked all along the fence, shaking hands with both hands, and the crowd was really delirious with them. And this kind of reaction was something like the reaction that was encountered in the big crowds all the way through the town. Very friendly. I saw only one hostile sign all the way through the motorcade, which went about 10 miles. And then suddenly, in the middle of this bright sunshine, the friendly crowd, and nobody expecting anything, these three muffled shots were heard. And it couldn't have been a more startling, gruesome contrast to the very pleasant, sunny, friendly atmosphere that he'd received, despite all the warnings that things were going to be difficult for him here in Dallas.
Why was that, Bob? Because of Adlai Stevenson's recent visit?
Well, this had been the thing that made the police worry, and Dallas got such a bad name around the world after the attack on Stevenson that the authorities were determined that there would be no repetition of this. You remember the ambassador was, someone spat on him and someone hit him over the head with a poster. They mobilized a third of their entire city police force with extra paddy wagons around the corner and everything else, and put on a strong propaganda campaign in the newspapers and on the radio and TV stations to make sure that the name of Dallas was not dragged in the mud again by any unfavorable incident when the president came. And that is why it was such a contrast.
What is the situation in the room where you are at the hospital now?
Well, I'm in a little small waiting room where emergency patients wait to be taken into the operating rooms where they're treated. And there are a few policemen who are the only ones left in the long corridor leading to the room with double swinging doors, behind which we assume the president's body is being placed in the bronze coffin, which was taken in about half an hour ago, and from which we expect it to come out shortly.
Bob, we have a still photograph here in the studio that has just moved, and it shows a man and a woman and what looks like two small children lying on the ground. I understand you saw these people.
Yes, well, they were the first people I went to. I must have got there shortly after or before that picture was taken, when I jumped out of the press bus, and they, in common with many other people, were screaming and lying down in the grass to escape from the shooting. The minute the shooting sound started, the air was filled with the screams of women and children. A sort of very feminine wailing filled the air, and everybody lay down on the sidewalks, on the grass, on the edge of the parkway. And I assume that the picture you're talking about is that, because nobody else I know was besides Kennedy and Governor Connolly.
We lost a part of that. You say, as far as you know, no one else was.
As far as I know, no one else was hit other than President Kennedy and Governor Connolly.
Now, Bob, again, about the area or the building from which the shot apparently was fired. Could you describe that for us and tell us about how far away it was from the car and how they would have been able to see the car from that distance?
Yes, well, I'll describe the scene. There was, as you come out of the main street of downtown Dallas, which was packed with people, it leads into a parkway called the Triple Underpass. And that parkway, which is lined with trees and lawns, takes a bend. And behind some trees in a sort of service road is a brick building of about 8 stories, which is called the Texas School Book Depository.
I see. So there were...
According to witnesses, 2 of them who I talked to and the police talked to, say they saw a man with a gun in the, one said the 2nd floor, another one said the 4th floor, a window of that building. Now, from either floor, Frank, he would be able to see over the low trees to about 100 yards away where the president's car was.
An unobstructed view, Bob?
I would think so. I was not able to go up to either of those windows, so I couldn't see for myself, but looking at it from the ground, it looked as though it would be. The president, therefore, must have had presented either a profile to the assailant, if he was, in fact, in those windows where the witnesses say, and or his 3/4 back, because his car had actually passed the direct line from the window. You see, the way it went is the car would have approached the window head-on, then turned left and gone down a slight decline under the underpass. Just a moment, Frank.
Yes, Bob. That seems to fit, Bill, with what he said. The word that we had here was the president was struck in the right temple. Yes, Bob.
The president's body has just been carried out.
Go ahead. Say again, Bob.
The president's body has just been carried out of the hospital in the bronze casket, and it was accompanied by his military aide, Major General Clifton.
And
it has been placed in an ambulance. I understand it is being taken straight to the air base where he landed to be flown back to Washington.
I see, Bob.
The crowds have all been moved away from the door by the local police and the Secret Service. I can hear the motorcycle escort outside with the ambulance starting up. And the president's body with some police motorcycle escort, is now pulling away from the hospital. It is about 1.5 hours since he was shot. The President has been dead for about 1 hour and 7 minutes. Vice President Lyndon Johnson, who is now constitutionally the President, left immediately after the President's death was confirmed, and with a police escort went off to the airport, presumably to go straight to Washington to assume the constitutional responsibilities of the President.
Bob, returning to your earlier narrative, you had just taken us to the point where the President's car had turned, and I was about to ask.
Now, there were 3 cars behind him with Secret Service and several Texas congressmen, and then I was in the first press bus, at the front of the first press bus, which came behind those. And just as we turned the corner, about 40 feet behind the President's car, I heard 3 shots.
Now, Bob, was the President seated or standing at that time?
The President was seated because there were very few people at that point. It was a thin crowd at that exact point. Most of the crowd had been concentrated a few hundred yards back. The President was seated, Mrs. Kennedy was seated, but when I heard shots, I saw people fall to the ground and was not looking for the moment at the President. The car immediately disappeared under the underpass and speeded up to go straight to the hospital. And I left the press bus and went to this building from which shots reportedly came.
Mm-hmm. What sort of a building is it, Bob?
Well, it is I told you the title. It's the Texas School Book Depository. It's a orangey brick building of about 8 floors, and it was showing an expanse to the street of maybe about 8 windows wide in the front.
Well, Bob, from the point where they think the man with the gun might have been seen to where the President was actually felled, would it have been possible for him to have been struck by a bullet in the right temple? That's his
I believe that if he was using a high-powered rifle with a telescopic sight, one policeman told me he understood it was a high-powered rifle. I don't know about the telescopic sight. I assume that from that distance it could be.
I see.
Could be.
About how fast was the President's motorcade going at the time of the
slowly.
firing?
It was about, by that time, having just gone around the corner, it was probably between 15 and 20 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. And Vice President Lyndon Johnson was how far behind?
From the area where it happened, so we returned to station WBAP-TV in Fort Worth and newsman Tom Whalen.
Here's an additional report on what you heard NBC correspondent Bob Abernathy describe a few minutes ago, the building in which the sniper had hidden. It's the Texas School Depository at the intersection of Elm and Houston Street in Dallas. Dallas Crime Laboratory Lieutenant J.C. Day went to the building a short time after the shooting took place, and he walked out with a British .303 rifle. The rifle has a telescopic sight. Now, the rifle was found on the 6th floor of the building near a corner window. Also, police searching that area found 3 empty .303 cartridge cases, also scraps of chicken, as if a person could have been there for some time. There were boxes of books, textbooks, and other school materials stacked up all around on 3 sides of a sniper's nest, as if he had been there for some time. There was a gun rest made of papers near the open window that commanded the site from which the sniper, by which the presidential motorcade passed when the President and Governor Connally was shot.
It's the first overseas point we have called in to bring you a reaction to the assassination of President Kennedy, which took place in Dallas, Texas this afternoon. Frank McGee is in touch with Robert McNeil,
let me interrupt
White House
you,
correspondent who was traveling with the President at the time the assassination took place. Here's Frank's conversation with McNeil.
I just wanted to interrupt you to tell you that you are going on the air. You are, in fact, on the air now, so why don't you make the report direct, Bob? Go right ahead.
We can have pictures, Frank, in about 15 minutes.
I see, Bob.
The doctors who attended President Kennedy have just reported his condition. Dr. A moment, I've lost my notes here. Dr.
All right, Bob.
Yes, the chief attending surgeon at the hospital, Dr. Malcolm Perry, said the President was in critical condition from wounds in the neck and the head when he was brought into the hospital.
Neck and head.
Neck and head. He said it is possible that these were both caused by the same bullet.
I see.
I'll just tell you what the doctor said. He said they immediately attempted resuscitation. The professor of neurosurgery at the hospital, Dr. Clark, was called in, and several other doctors. They arrived, but the president's condition at that time did not allow any sign of resuscitation. He was critically ill and moribund, that is, near death. They attempted respiration. They gave him oxygen, anesthetic. They performed a tracheotomy, that is, making an opening into the neck to assist breathing. They gave him blood and fluids, and also chest in the tube to remove any possibility of air getting into the pleural space. They attached an electric cardiograph to monitor his heartbeat, but shortly after that, his heart failed, and they tried external massage to produce a heart movement again. This was without any success. They did achieve, for a brief moment, a faint pulse, but the president finally died at 1 o'clock, about 25 minutes after he was brought into the hospital. They said that the brain wound in the president's head involved a great loss of blood and a great loss of brain tissue. The brain wound was in the back of his head, slightly to the right, which, Frank, would fit with the picture I gave you earlier.
Yes, Bob.
Of the president having his back to the assailant. If this hypothesis that the assailant was in the building I described is true. But this conflicts with the fact that the wound in the neck, the doctors say, was in the front of the neck, just below the Adam's apple. Now, it could have been that there were two bullets. One struck him as he faced the assailant, the other as the car turned the corner. Or perhaps one bullet just struck him from the front in the neck and then went up the brain. In any case, the president never regained consciousness.
The president was unconscious from the moment he was struck until he died.
Unconscious and near death from that moment.
I see, Bob. And is there not an arrow there?
The arrow, yes,
window?
Frank, should be pointing to the 5th floor window from which it is believed the fatal shots were fired.
And
there were photographers who said they saw a rifle being pulled in from the window.
And you can see the people gathered outside the building. And then the rifle itself, I believe we have a picture of it.
Yes, there should be one there of the rifle being removed from the building. There it is, variously described as a 303.
Perhaps some of the experts could recognize it immediately, but it obviously has a telescopic sight on it. And the best we can make out now, the president's motorcade had really traveled perhaps a few yards beyond this point, and that the fatal shots that were fired from behind and struck him in the back of the head, and then incongruously some way another bullet struck him in the front of the neck.
And the next street over, we watched the president come by and gave him the applaud that is due the office of the President of the United States, and as he turned left, 2 or 3 shots rang out. We thought they were firecrackers until, I thought they did, until the last shot rang out and we heard people screaming. And we rushed over in time to see a policeman standing behind one of the fire poles, looking around as if for some place to shoot, someone to shoot at. I'd like to remind you here that as the news comes into the newsroom, we will be on the air. We'll have our eyewitness people here in just a moment. Vicki, would you see if they need some coffee or something? These people are awfully shaken up. They come awfully close. They were in the line of fire. Jared?
I remember, Jay, you said, I thought it was, a firecracker or something like that, and then they followed one shot, and then a second or two later another shot, and then another second or two, and then the third shot, and you said the man's been shot at, and we both turned.
No, I said, my God, that's gunshot.
That's right. Oh. And then we turned right over, we were behind Mr. Dealey's statue, and we ran over to the cement wall, and we saw people beginning to scatter in places, and I believe our eyewitness was on the ground.
Jared, would you do me a favor? Would you go check in the newsroom now, and as the men come in from the field, or if they have stories, please let me know, and also get someone to check with, we were supposed to take the feed from KRLD. They may still be doing a feed from there. Check it, let me know. And until our news crew gets back in, we will sort of use this studio as our headquarters. These people, and you will excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, because I know that you are so upset, but I would like to talk to you for a minute. It's a little bit awkward, so the camera shots will have to fall as they may. I'm going to stand right here, and maybe somebody can give me a chair while we're doing this. May I have your name, please, sir?
Bill Newman.
And this is Mrs. Newman?
Yes, sir.
And this is?
James Clayton.
James, and this is?
Billy.
Billy, tell me what you saw and what you felt. What happened to you?
We just come from left field after seeing the President and the First Lady, and we were just in front of the triple underpass on Elm Street, and we were at the edge of the curve, getting ready to wave at the President. So
you were down under the viaduct, so to speak, weren't you?
Well, we were halfway in between
on the grass,
the triple underpass. We were at the curve when the incident happened. But the President's car was some 50 feet still yet.
In front of you?
In front of us, coming towards us, and we heard the first shot, and the President, I don't know who was hit first, but the President jumped up in his seat, and I thought it scared him. I thought it was a firecracker, because he looked, fear. And then as the car got directly in front of us, well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the President in the side of the temple.
Do you think the first gunshot came from behind you, too?
I think it came from the same location. Apparently back up on the mall. I don't know what you call it.
For the benefit of nomenclature, all of you folks have gone out under the viaduct, and as you turn, going under the viaduct on the left-hand side, there's some grass. Do you think the shot came from up on top of the viaduct toward the President? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Not on the viaduct itself, but up on top of the hill, a little mound of ground there, the garden.
How far away would you say that is from where the President was? A couple of 300 yards, something like that?
Well, I have no idea, because I didn't see where the gunshot come from. We were looking directly at the President when he was hit, and he was more or less directly in front of us, and we didn't realize what happened until we seen the side of his head whenever the bullet hit him in the head.
Did you see the blood coming from the President's head?
Yes, sir, we seen that. I don't know if my wife did, but I seen that.
Oh, yes, sir, it was awful.
It is awful.
That's all.
What kind of work do you do, sir?
I'm a construction worker, electrician.
Is this the first time that you have seen a President of the United States? Did you see him when he was here before in 1961?
No, sir.
No, sir. You're a housewife.
Yes, sir.
Took the day off to come downtown and see the President?
Yes, sir, we did. We wanted our children to see it.
Were you in the line of fire? I remember vividly whenever I walked over and looked over the banister there and saw across the street that you were down on the ground so that to keep out of the line of fire. What was the first thought that struck your mind?
Oh, I thought it was a firecracker, and I saw the blood, and I had the baby, and I just ran, and I got on top of him and laid on the grass. It just scared me. It was terrible.
Did you see anyone else hit besides the...
Governor Connolly was kind of turned to the side, and he grabbed his stomach.
Okay. Thank you. Jerry, if anything else comes in, we had a report, and I'd like to say here, for the benefit of you folks who are tuning in, who have tuned in late to watch Julie Bonnell's show, that we interrupt the program, and our program will be interrupted all day because it is apparent now that President Kennedy has been shot. We have no word in our newsroom, but we are standing by in our newsroom, and would you work as a runner with the newsroom, and as anything comes in, and if you get into the boys that come in that have been gathering the news, please bring them in so that we can have them on the air. Here is another word. We know, as we carried here, and all the stations carried this morning, the President spoke this morning in Fort Worth. He flew to Dallas, and that coverage was on. He landed here about 1:30, between 1:35 and 1:40. Vicki, did you get the coffee for the people? Bring it on in. He was to deliver a speech at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and he was on a motorcade and only about, 2 or 3 miles from where he was to make the speech in the Trade Mart whenever this terrible, disastrous thing happened, and it happened in our city. Secret Service agents that were in the car immediately began following the President. They pulled automatic rifles. I was an eyewitness to one of the policemen standing there behind a light pole, and you'll excuse me if I'm frustrated, you would be too, standing there with a pistol in his hand. The bubble of the President's car was down when the shots rang out. In fact, if I remember correctly, when they took off from the airport, there was no There was no bubble on the car. The president slumped over in the back seat face down. Conley lay on the floor of the rear seat. Wounds in the governor's chest were clearly visible. This is from the United Press. The wounds indicated that an automatic weapon was used. 3 loud bursts of gunfire were heard before the president and the governor fell. Just a few minutes before, Jerry Haynes and I, the president smiling and his lovely wife smiling. Do you have any idea which direction? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I forget my name at this stage. Mr. Newman, do you have any idea which direction? Would you like to go ahead? Go right ahead. I'm so sorry that you're so upset, and I hope we're not prevailing upon your good nature to have you here, except with the news like this. Mr. Nunley, do you have any idea which direction the shots came from that hit the president or Conley? Did you say that one of the shots came from one direction and one from another, it seemed like?
No, sir. Actually, I feel that they both come from directly behind where we were standing.
Right behind you.
The president, it looked like he was looking in that direction. I don't know whether he was hit first. Apparently he wasn't. It looked like he jumped up in his seat, and when he jumped up, well, he was shot directly in the head. And I don't know what you call it, the mall behind us, but apparently that's
where he was. I know that a few minutes after that, when I came over there and asked you people if you would be kind enough to come over and be on our station today, I know that the police were all taking off up the ramp and over.
Everybody was going in that direction.
Toward the railroad.
Yes, sir.
Cars back over in there.
I just hope the man that shot the president, I just hope they don't kill him. I hope he lives. I hope he just lives to regret what he did. And that's all the comment.
The presidential advisor.
Excuse me. Jerry Haynes, you know Jerry. Mr. Peppermint. Jerry and I were within 100 yards of where the president was shot. And Jerry, you'll have to... There's another mic here somewhere. Can we excuse our impromptu... Here we go. Can we turn this... Is this one on now, Bobby?
On the Associated Press, someone had asked one of the presidential advisors or companions for any news, and he refused comment. They asked if he had been wounded fatally. And this was about 5 minutes ago that came over about the same time I brought that bulletin in.
Do we have a report yet from Parkland Hospital? Is there any word from there?
No.
Here in Dallas, Eddie Barker, the news director of KRLD, bringing you up to date. The reason that the mobile unit was set up at the Trade Mart that at 1 o'clock today, President Kennedy was scheduled to make a speech. Now, on my right and on your left is a crude, and you'll excuse the artwork, with apologies to you, Sam, of where in Dallas the shooting took place today. Dallas is off to your left. This is Main Street. This is the county courthouse and the jailhouse in this block here. This is the triple underpass that we have referred to. This is where President Kennedy, Johnson, and as I understand it now, a Secret Service man was shot at about, Conley was shot at approximately 12:35 today. And from our eyewitness that you saw earlier, was shot from up in here. This is an overpass going over these streets. We call it our triple underpass because there's another one, was shot from here. Conley arrived last night in Fort Worth to a warm reception. It was raining up until about, in Dallas and in Fort Worth, up until about, I guess 9:30 or 10 o'clock this morning. And everybody was saying, well, the president brought the rain with him, because those of you who have been in this area recently know how bad we have needed the rain. He made a speech this morning at 9 o'clock that was carried on television.
Control room here in New York that Washington was standing by with a report, but we've been unable to reach them at this moment. I'm sure that in a matter of seconds, perhaps in another minute or two, we will be able to reach Washington. Did you have something else, Ed Silverman?
I just thought we might recap for those who probably heard about it just a few moments ago.
I think that's a good idea.
What happened, that the president and Governor Connolly were shot in their motorcade as it entered an underpass while going through downtown Dallas. And when the shots were first fired, there were thought to be 3. That later was confirmed there were 4 shots. The president fell over face down. Governor Connolly apparently was wounded in the body. He fell forward. Mrs. Kennedy leaped up and cried, "Oh no," and tried to hold the president's head up. Blood was seen on the president's head. And a Secret Service agent apparently was shot by one of the assassin's bullets as well. And of course, you have them from there on.
Thanks very much, Ed. In case you did join us late or had not heard the news, those are the facts. Who is at the hospital and has been in touch with people at the scene. Ed, is there anything new there?
No, there is nothing new, Ron. Bill left the phone to check with the sheriff's office. He did confirm the death of the Secret Service agent, the fact that at least a dozen eyewitnesses have been brought in for interrogation, and the fact that one suspect has been picked up.
And also the fact that one of the Secret Service agents was killed. The Secret Service agents normally walk directly beside the car on either side. We do not see any in this photograph, but usually 2 or 3 Secret Service agents will walk on either side of the car so that they are there to spot anyone who looks like a troublemaker.
I didn't get a clear look at her face. Obviously, she is grief-stricken at this stage, but she was walking calmly by the side of the casket as it was carried out of the hospital and placed in an ambulance.
All right, Bob, just to recap this, would you give us the very latest that you have on the president and the situation there, and some of the reaction there, too? I know it's been quite a shock to all.
Well, actually, we have gotten little official word from the White House. We got the announcement something like a half an hour ago that the president was dead. There has still been no official words from the doctors who were in attendance. It's known, of course, that the president was killed by one shot that struck him in the right temple. I can recap briefly the tragic chain of events. The presidential motorcade had just swept through downtown Dallas. The crowds couldn't have been friendlier, couldn't have been more cordial or more enthusiastic. They were extremely large. There must have been at least 150,000, probably more than that, along the route of the motorcade from Love Airport in Dallas through downtown Dallas. We had just rounded a corner at the fringe of the business district when 3 shots suddenly rang out, but they sounded at this stage like an automobile backfiring. They were extremely loud. I was in a car as a poolman for the American Radio and Television Networks, was in a car just 3 cars behind the president. We heard the shots very clearly, but it was almost inconceivable at that stage that this was an assassination. About no more than 2 or 3 seconds elapsed before the car that the president was traveling. This was an open limousine that had been sent out from the White House fleet in Washington. This car came to an immediate stop. The Secret Service follow car. Some of the agents piled out, then almost immediately leaped back in. We saw one of them pull out a submachine gun. They leaped back into the car, and the motorcade took off very rapidly. It had just entered a throughway. The motorcade did something like 60 miles an hour to Parkland Memorial Hospital, which is some 3 or 4 miles away. The car I was in kept up with the motorcade. We were some 50 feet behind the car carrying the president when he entered the hospital grounds. We, of course, all out of the car, went immediately to the side of his car. At that point, the president was lying prone in the back seat of the car, his head cradled by Mrs. Kennedy. He was holding one hand over his head. Apparently, he had, when he had been shot, he had clutched his hand to his face. He was absolutely motionless. I think someone who was more experienced at this sort of disaster might have recognized immediately that the president had been mortally wounded. I stood at the side of the car for some a minute or two while a stretcher was wheeled out. During this period, the president made no motion at all. The First Lady, again, sat rather holding his head. Then he was lifted by 3 or 4 Secret Service agents, again with Mrs. Kennedy standing by, actually pulling on to him during this period. He was lifted by the agents and placed on the stretcher, wheeled immediately into the emergency ward of the hospital. At this point, Governor Connolly, who had also, of course, been shot and is still in critical condition, was lying sort of half stretched out in the front seat of this the same open limousine. The only persons besides the Secret Service agents in the car with the President were Governor Connolly, and the First Lady. When the President was wheeled into the hospital, Governor Connolly was still laying, again, half stretched out on the front seat of the car. I was surprised at this stage. I had noticed while we were waiting for the stretcher to be wheeled up for Mr. Kennedy, the Vice President, who had been traveling in a car behind the President, had gotten out, and with someone by his side, the Vice President appeared to be clutching his chest. He walked into the hospital, perhaps a minute or so before Mr. Kennedy was placed aboard the... There have since, of course, been unconfirmed reports that the Vice President has suffered a heart attack. From the time the President arrived at the hospital, we went through almost an hour without any medical word at all. The corridor where he had been wheeled into the emergency ward was closed off to all but Secret Service agents. Senator Yarborough of Texas, who had also been in the procession and in the car with Lynn Johnson, sat weeping quietly in a small hospital room off the corridor. The Secret Service maintained extremely strict precautions during this stage. No one, and that meant absolutely no one, was permitted down the corridor within 50 of the emergency room where the President then lay. The official word that the President was dead was, this announcement was made in the lobby of the White House almost an hour after he had been shot. The only development since that time, and we have still had no further medical details from any of the doctors in attendance, the only further development came just a few minutes ago when the President, the bronze casket bearing the President's body was out of the hospital, placed in an ambulance and taken to a Dallas funeral home.
Bob, we're going to do something rather unorthodox, but the circumstances call for it. We want you to proceed to a radio station, TV station, WFAA, and give us your reports from there. Call us on our number of Susquehanna 75000, extension 385. Those are your instructions, Bob. Thank you very much for the report.
Until we have somebody else here at the hospital, or someone else getting development house, I would not do that at this stage.
Okay, we'll abide by your decision then, Bob. You keep us posted. Anytime you have anything fresh, give us a call. We'll put you on.
Okay, fine.
Okay, fine. Thank you. That was Bob Clark and
TV you were just taking, huh? Next.
You're on the air, Bob, so we hear you. Thank you very much, Bob.
Fine, thanks.
And we'll hear from you later. That was Bob Clark in Dallas. Let's go now to Don Goddard.
With me here in the studio is Jim Haggerty, who spent 8 years as press secretary of President Eisenhower, as you know, and who had a hand in the planning of many motorcades like this to prevent the very greatest dread of the thing that has happened today. Jim is now vice president of ABC. Jim, what precautions normally would be taken, and why did they break down in this case?
Well, I don't think they broke down. There is always an advance Secret Service detail that goes to any city and works with the local police, the sheriff's office, the state police in protecting the line of route. But when a president of the United States or any official of our country is traveling in an open car, you cannot guard every single window. You cannot guard every single building. So you have to go for a show of force, an obvious show of police protection. In an open car or in any car that the president rides in, the driver is a Secret Service man and the man in the front seat is a Secret Service man. Immediately following the presidential car, there is at least one and sometimes two follow-up Secret Service cars. The drivers of those cars are members of the Secret Service, and the occupants are Secret Service and special assigned men from the municipal police force or the state police force or the sheriff's office. I have seen many motorcades talked to many officials of law enforcement agencies throughout our country and around the world. And each of them say the same thing, that a rifle shot, particularly from a window of a building, is pretty tough to guard against. But the President of the United States, a man in that office, has to be completely fatalist about his own welfare.
And fearless.
And fearless. And all of our presidents, I think, have been that way. The very fact that at least a suspect has been seized shows that the security was working to a certain point. But this has happened. Attempts have happened before. And Ron Cochran has reported the other events in front of Blair House in 1950 with President Truman, in Miami with President-elect Roosevelt. But the thing that this one, a little different than any others, was that this was a rifle apparently used with a marksman. In the past, there only one other man outside of the Puerto Ricans who fired at a president that knew how to shoot a firearm was John Wilkes Booth. All of the other attempts on the lives of the presidents have been by screwballs who have fired a gun for the first time in their life at the President of the United States.
Jim, we now have some film, fresh film in Dallas, and we will go to our Dallas newsroom for that.
Jay Watson and Bob Walker at WFAA-TV in Dallas, the ABC News Information Center for this area. The eyes of the nation and the hearts of the nation are with Mrs. Kennedy today, and the eyes of Dallas, Texas are held in shame. We have a film available that was, excuse me, Bob, go ahead.
May report this bulletin that a Secret Service agent and a Dallas policeman were shot and killed here today. They were shot some distance from the area where President Kennedy was assassinated. No other information immediately available from there, except one more point here that this Secret Service Lieutenant Eric Kaminsky has said the assassin's weapon appears to have been a high-powered Army or Japanese rifle of .25 caliber. The entire building where the sniper was located was evacuated. If we could get a picture of our map here and show somewhere of the building, it's a Texas school book depository, which means exactly what it says.
This is the car where the president was. This is what we call our triple underpass in Dallas. This is the grassy area and it was originally thought that the shots came from in here, and now it's believed that the shots came from this building here.
The building we just saw in the picture, the book storage place, it's a 7.65 Mauser, German-made Army rifle, telescopic sight, and one shell left in the chamber. 3 spent shells have been found nearby, and apparently they're hooking this as the murder weapon. This is from one of those windows up in the top.
Well, Don, as I said a little earlier, I think this, like the Puerto Rican attempt in front of Blair House in 1950, has to be a planned conspiracy. This is the first time in our history when a rifle has been used and fired at a president of the United States. From the photographs of the building, that carry must have been a couple of 100 yards. And whoever fired it must have been a man that could handle a rifle with a telescopic sight, and I understand they found the rifle and had a telescopic sight on it. All of the other attempts, both assassinations and attempts, outside of the Puerto Rican one, was done with a pistol. And with the exception of John Wilkes Booth, the assassins of a president fired a revolver at the president for the first time they ever fired a gun. So this must have been a very carefully planned, terrible tragedy and conspiracy. Again, talking about the security matters, in a large city it is impossible to guard every single window. In the years that I served with General Eisenhower, the only time I ever saw all windows guarded in a line of march was at Tehran, when President Eisenhower went to visit the Shah of Iran. And as you might remember, along about that time, his life had been publicly threatened by the members of the communist conspiracy throughout the world. And they turned out their whole army And every single window on that line of march in the city was guarded by either an army or a policeman. But that was the only time I've ever seen that.
You felt pretty well covered that time.
You felt very well covered. But in a city, it's impossible. In a city the size of Dallas or New York, you just can't guard every single window. But it happened, and these are the risks that a president always takes. I'm sure that every single president, I know President Eisenhower personally, in the back of his mind always realized that there was a chance where some vindictive person or a screwball or somebody like that would take a shot at him.
It's bootless, Jim, to talk about what might have happened, but would that bubble have bounced bullets if it had been closed?
I can't speak with any authority on the bubble that is now used. I can with the bubble that was used by President Eisenhower, and that was not bulletproof. The bottom of the car that President Eisenhower used, and I would assume is the same with President Kennedy, is armor-plated. Yes. And that is for grenades that might be tossed, or a mine, or something like that. But the bubble on President Eisenhower's car was used to protect mainly from the elements, rain or drizzle, so that the people could still see him if it was raining or was drizzling.
Well, this adds one to the case for conspiracy then, and the Dallas police are apparently trying to add another. They've arrested a 24-year-old man, Lee Oswald, in connection with the slaying of the Dallas policeman, and presumably the slaying also of the Secret Service man in another part of Dallas, which happened just shortly before the president.
Well, I was interested also, Don, in the reports from Bob Clark, that after the shooting happened, the president's car and the follow-up car immediately left in a hurry, left the scene. This, again, is in line with security measures. And if anything happens, they get out of that place fast in case there are other people in the crowd that are ready.
Yes. Jim?
Well, how did it happen? Who saw it happen? We have some eyewitness reports. ABC's Bill Lord interviewed some people. First, a Dallas policeman, an eyewitness to the shooting.
Jim Chaney. I understand that you were riding next to the president's car when the assassination took place. I was riding on the right rear fender. What happened? Well, we had proceeded west on Elm Street at approximately 15 to 20 miles an hour. When we heard the first shot, I thought it was a motorcycle backfiring. And I looked back over to my left, and also President Kennedy looked back over his left shoulder. Then when the second shot came, I looked back just in time to see the president struck in the face by the second bullet. He slunk forward into Ms. Kennedy's lap, and when it was apparent to me that we were being fired upon, I went ahead of the president's car to inform Chief Curry that the president had been hit, and then he instructed us over there to take him to Parkland Hospital, and he had Parkland Hospital stand by. I went on up ahead of notify the officers that were leading the escort that he had been hit. We're going to have to move out. You did not see the person who fired the shot? No, sir. It was back over my right shoulder. What preventive measures had been taken to preclude such an incident? I don't know what had done that part of town. All right, fine. Thank you. Let's go.
This patrolman was so close to the president that following the 3 shots, his uniform was spattered with blood. There were many witnesses to the assassination, many of them people who had come to town early in the day to find a place to watch the president and the First Lady, and I talked to one who saw it happen and took a picture.
And I took the picture. It so happened my picture, when I took it, was at the same instant that the president was hit. And that does show in my picture.
What does the picture look like?
It shows the president, he slumped. Jackie Kennedy was leaning towards him to see, I guess, it all happened so suddenly. I don't think anyone realized, what had happened.
Did you realize what had happened when you heard the shots?
No, I didn't. There was, 3 or 4 real close together. And it was, must have been the first one that shot him, because that was the time I took the picture. And during that time, after I took the picture, and the shots were still being fired, I decided I'd better get on the ground.
Did people lie down on the ground?
I just know about myself and the ones right close to me. And, well, really, I just know about myself.
You did lie down?
I did. I was no more than 15 foot from the car and in line of fire, evidently.
Did Mrs. Kennedy scream on the first shot?
I don't know about the first shot, but she did scream. She says, "My God, he's been hit," or "he's been shot."
And the president fell in Mrs. Kennedy's arms?
No, I think he just slumped into the seat. She jumped up over him, and during the time when she jumped up, of course, the car sped away real fast.
Now, the picture you took, I understand the FBI has it now.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you very much. In addition, there were some 8mm color motion pictures taken at the time, and these also are in the hands of the FBI and the Secret Service.
Mrs. John F. Kennedy left the hospital at approximately the same time the coffin carrying the body of her husband left. The coffin went to a private air installation at Dallas's Love Field. It either has left or will leave Dallas Love Field in a matter of minutes. We are told that the gunshot wound, the fatal wound inflicted on the President of the United States, entered at the base of the throat and came out at the base of the neck on the back side.
And the best we can make out now, the president's motorcade had really traveled perhaps a few yards beyond this point, and that the fatal shots that were fired from behind and struck him in the back of the head. And then, incongruously, some way, another bullet struck him in the front of the neck.
One reporter, Frank, who was traveling in the motorcade, says it's his guess that the assassin had about a 45-degree angle on the president, so that it was not head-on or directly from the rear, but on the side.
When asked to specify about the wound, the doctor said the president was shot in the forehead.
President Kennedy, we are now informed, was shot in the right temple. It was a simple matter of a bullet right through the head, said Dr. George Berkeley, the White House medical officer.
We know that Mr. Kennedy was hit in the right temple.
This late bulletin, the president was shot in the right temple. It was a simple matter of a bullet right through the head. This is a quote from Dr. George Berkeley, the White House medical officer.
Governor Connally could very possibly have been shot in the back with the assassin's bullets still coming from the front of the car. He rode in a small jump seat in the center of the back of the specially built presidential limousine, specially built for such public performances such as this.
Vice President Johnson under heavy guard right now, with assassins obviously still at large, because this apparently is the work of more than one man. A cluster of rifle bullets, husks from bullets, have been found on the 5th floor of the Sexton building, from which the assassination attempt and successful assassination attempt began.
The wounds indicated that an automatic weapon was used.
You're listening to KBOX 1480 in Dallas. The Secret Service tells KBOX News that President Kennedy was apparently shot by a high-powered Army or Japanese rifle, about 25 caliber.
First reports said that President Kennedy was shot from an overpass. You would imagine these reporters became swarmed with investigators, Secret Service.
There's the window there.
The window right there where the fatal bullet was fired.
The fatal shots were apparently fired from a 5th floor window, and that is where the spent shells have been found. Interestingly, the murder weapon itself was found on the 6th floor, which indicated that the assassin ran upstairs in an effort to hide the weapon before leaving the building.
Dallas Crime Laboratory Lieutenant J.C. Day went to the building a short time after the shooting took place and he walked out with a British 303 rifle. The rifle has a telescopic sight. Now, the rifle was found on the 6th floor of the building near a corner window. Also, police searching that area found 3 empty 303 cartridge cases, also scraps of chicken, as if a person could have been there for some time.
Now, we are starting to get conflicting reports on weapons. There was one that it was a 303 rifle, and the 3 spent 303 cartridges were found on the 5th floor of this building, along with some remnants of chicken, indicating that the sniper staked himself out for quite a while before firing the fatal shot today. Now there is another word that a Mauser has been found, a 7.65 Mauser. It's a German army rifle which had a telescopic sight with 1 shell left in the chamber. 3 spent shells were found nearby. What this means, whether this is the weapon or the other, we do not know. Possibly the Mauser is measured in millimeters and might come close to being a 303, Frank.
Wounds in the governor's chest were clearly visible. The wounds indicated an automatic weapon had been used. Police say this is believed to be a .30 caliber pistol, a rather rifle.
Do you know exactly what kind of gun that they found over at the book?
Yes, sir. They have just found the weapon that they believe is the assassination weapon. It is an Argentine 6.5 Mauser that had a 4-power scope on it. Also, in this same area, they found a bag of chicken. They found several bottles of soft drink. And in other words, the man had been planted there for some time.
This is an Argentine-made bolt-action rifle of World War II vintage. You can see the telescopic sight.
We have heard that a definite identification has been made of the type of rifle used in the assassination of President Kennedy. It was not a Mauser, as has been reported through most of yesterday and today. Mauser German-made rifle with the sniper scope sights that was found on the German-built Mauser with the sniper scope that was used to kill President Kennedy.
7.65 Mauser, German rifle, familiar to those who served in World War II.
Place. It's a 7.65 Mauser, German-made army rifle, telescopic sight, and 1 shell left in the chamber. 3 spent shells have been found nearby, and apparently they're hooking this as the murder weapon.
Sniper scope, high-powered Mauser
The Dallas
rifle.
Sheriff's Department said a rifle had been found in a staircase on the 5th floor of a building near the scene of the assassination. It was a 7.65 Mauser, a German Mauser, I believe.
There's another word that a Mauser has been found.
Mauser.
Oswald worked in the building where the murder weapon, a German-made Mauser rifle, was
one still found in the Mauser with which the assassin was apparently armed.
We are told that the gunshot wound, the fatal wound inflicted on the President of the United States, entered at the base of the throat and came out at the base of the neck on the back side.
That the brain wound in the president's head involved a great loss of blood and a great loss of brain tissue. The brain wound was in the back of his head, slightly to the right, which, Frank, would fit with the picture I gave you earlier of the president having his back to the assailant. If this hypothesis that the assailant was in the building I described is true. But this conflicts with the fact that the wound in the neck, the doctors say, was in the front of the neck, just below the Adam's apple. Now, it could have been that there were 2 bullets. One struck him as he faced the assailant, the other as the car turned the corner, or perhaps one bullet just struck him from the front in the neck and then went up his brain. In any case, the president never regained consciousness.
And the best we can make out now, the president's motorcade had really traveled perhaps a few yards beyond this point, and that the fatal shots that were fired from behind and struck him in the back of the head, and then incongruously some way another bullet struck him in the front of the neck.
One reporter, Frank, who was traveling in the motorcade, says it's his guess that the assassin had about a 45-degree angle on the president, so that it was not head-on or directly from the rear, but on the side.
Well, actually, we have gotten little official word from the White House. We got the announcement something like a half an hour ago that the president was dead. There has still been no official words from the doctors who were in attendance. It's known, of course, that the president was killed by one shot that struck him in the right temple.
This is the car where the president was. This is what we call our triple underpass in Dallas. This is the grassy area where, and it was originally thought that the shots came from in here, and now it's believed that the shots came from this building here. We have
Such is the nature of the American system for the presidential succession that shortly after President Kennedy's death was announced, Vice President Johnson was sworn in an impromptu ceremony in the executive cabin of the presidential plane, the very plane that had carried President Kennedy to Dallas this morning. The new chief executive took the oath of office at 2:39 p.m. Central Time, that's Dallas time, 3:39 p.m. Eastern Time, and for the first time in history, the oath was administered by a woman, U.S. District Judge Sarah T. Hughes. Johnson was sworn in on the Air Force Number 1, the presidential plane, and he then flew on to Washington. He's now en route, airborne to Washington, to take up the duties of Chief Executive of the United States, duties which cannot wait upon sorrow or tragedy. Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Johnson were both present at the swearing-in of President Johnson. So were several congressmen, White House staff members who accompanied the presidential trip. Johnson asked as many of the White House people who were there as possible to crowd into the plane to witness the ceremony. Judge Hughes wept as she administered the traditional presidential oath to President Johnson. And then the plane took off immediately for Washington with Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Kennedy, and some White House aides aboard. President Kennedy's body is following on another plane. Vice President Johnson.
The trend of the clearing, whether it is clearing or not, yes. We didn't mention the president to Governor Connolly. No.
He is out of person at the present time and resting in his room, is that correct?
No. They are now taking care of the compound fracture of the right radius. As soon as that is finished, he will be taken to the recovery room where he will be carefully watched until he has regained all of his vital signs. Now, his vital signs are good now, but we like to observe them for a period of time. This is a routine measure until blood pressure is stable, respirations are satisfactory, and until the governor is fully recovered from the anesthesia. In other words, he's fully conscious, responding rationally to questions. This is being taken care of. The bullet is in the leg. It hasn't been removed. This is a very insignificant factor, though. It will be removed. Left eye, but there's no significant injury to the left eye. Before he goes to the recovery room.
His vital signs are good now, but we like to observe them for a period of time. This is a routine measure until blood pressure is stable, respirations are satisfactory, and until the governor is fully recovered from the anesthesia. In other words, he's fully conscious, responding rationally to questions.
They're asking now if a bullet was found in his leg.
The bullet is in the leg. It hasn't been removed. This is a very insignificant factor, though. It will be removed. Left eye, but there's no significant injury to the left eye. Before he goes to the recovery room.
It was asked, when will it be removed? They're now asking asking, will he stay at this hospital?
The Dallas Sheriff's Department said the rifle had been found in a staircase on the 5th floor of a building near the scene of the assassination. It was a 7.65 Mauser. The German-made Army rifle had a telescopic sight with one shell left in the chamber. 3 spent shells were found nearby.
In Dallas, Texas, the flags draped. The young people were out of school to see the President of the United States. The youngsters of all ages. There comes the motorcade preceding the President. The car in the middle there is also filled with police officers. There's the President of the United States.
For firing the shot. It's most unusual, incidentally, that such a thing could happen because of the unusually tight security measures that are ordinarily taken by the Secret Service who guard the President. And normally, any vantage point, a rooftop, and windows which command a parade route are carefully scrutinized and carefully guarded, and men are usually posted on rooftops along a parade route, particularly if there is any reason at all to suppose that there might be someone in the area who would have such ideas as assassination in his mind regarding the President. These precautions, of course, are taken by the Secret Service for all presidents, as they have been for many years.
I don't know how long the other man has worked.
What type of establishment? How Oswald got to the other side of town. Is there anything that can come up of that? Did he get over by a bus, by a car? He couldn't have walked.
I don't know. We have heard that he was picked up by a Negro in a car.
That is not confirmed?
No, it's not confirmed as far as I know.
Are you looking for the Negro?
We would like to know about him. If this is so, we would certainly like to find him.
Chief Curry, could you detail for us what led you to Oswald?
Let's go back now to Dallas and to Dan Rather.
We have just returned from seeing a complete motion picture of the moments immediately preceding and the moments of President Kennedy's assassination. The motion picture shows the limousine carrying in the front seat 2 Secret Service men, in the middle or jump seat Governor and Mrs. John Connally of Texas, and in the rear seat President and Mrs. Kennedy, a single Secret Service man standing on the back bumper. The top of the black Lincoln convertible down. The car made a turn, a left turn off of Houston Street onto Elm Street on the fringe of Dallas's downtown area. That turn made directly below the 6th floor window from which the assassin's bullets came. After the left turn was completed, the automobile with only one car in front of it, a Secret Service car immediately in front, the President's car proceeded about 35 yards from the base of the building in which the assassin was. President Kennedy and Governor Connally were seated on the same side of the open car, the side facing the building. Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Connally on the side of the car opposite the assassin. President Kennedy is clearly shown to put his right hand up to the side of his face as if to either brush back his hair or perhaps rub his eyebrow. Mrs. Kennedy at that instant is looking away, that is, not looking at the President. At almost that instant, when the President has his hand up to this side of his face, he lurches forward, something in this manner. The first shot had hit him. Mrs. Kennedy appeared not to notice. But Governor Connally, in the seat right in front of the President, and by the way, the governor had his suit coat open. His suit was not buttoned. Perhaps he either heard the shot or somehow he knew that something was wrong, because the picture shows just after that first shot hit the President, the governor turned in something in this manner with his right arm outstretched back toward the President, as if to say what's wrong or what happened or say something, and exposed the entire white front shirt of the governor to the full view of the assassin's window. And as the governor was in this position, and President Kennedy behind him was slumped slightly over, a shot clearly hit the front of Governor Connolly, and the governor fell back over toward his wife. Mrs. Connolly immediately put herself over her husband in a protective position, and as she did so, in the back seat, this time with Mrs. Kennedy's eyes apparently right on her husband, the second shot, the third shot in all, the second shot hit the president's head. His head went forward in a violent motion, pushing it down like this. And Mrs. Kennedy was on her feet immediately. The president fell over in this direction. It appeared that his head probably brushed or hit against Mrs. Kennedy's legs. The First Lady almost immediately tried to crawl on, and did crawl on, to the trunk of the car. Face down, her whole body almost was on that trunk in something of an all-fours position. She appeared to be either trying desperately to get the attention of the Secret Service man on the back bumper, or perhaps she was stretching out toward him to grab him, try to get him in, or perhaps even trying to get herself out of the car. The car was moving all the time. The car never stopped. The Secret Service man on the back bumper leaned way over and put his hands on Mrs. Kennedy's shoulders. She appeared to be in some danger of falling or rolling off that trunk lid. And he pushed her back into the back seat of the car. In the front seat, a Secret Service man with a phone in his hand. And the car speeded up and sped away. It never stopped. The car never paused. That's what the film of the assassination showed. The film was taken by an amateur photographer who had placed himself in an advantageous position. 8mm color film. This is Dan Rather in Dallas.
And now let's go down to Dallas and Dan Rather.
In Dallas, with Lee Oswald, the man accused of assassinating President Kennedy, dead, the big question now is, what kind of man shot Lee Oswald, and why? We have in the studios of our affiliate station KRLD-TV here in Dallas, Bill DeMar, who is a nightclub MC, a comedian by profession. Bill worked in the nightclub owned by Jack Ruby. Jack Rubinstein is his real name, known in Dallas circles as Jack Ruby. Bill, how long had you been working at the Carousel Club owned by Jack Rubinstein?
This time about 2 weeks.
You had worked for him before, had you?
3 times before. This is my 4th time here.
The Carousel Club is located right in downtown Dallas. What kind of place is it?
Well, it's a nightclub that has about 5 or 6 exotic dancers and a whole combo.
Is it a pretty rough place?
No. There's a lot of people that have said to me when they came up to me after shows or between shows that they liked the place because it was intimate.
What kind of man is Jack Rubinstein?
Well, if you know him, he's a pretty good type guy. He always treated me right, and we always got along real well. I consider him more of a friend than an employer.
Is he an extrovert? Is he a handshaking, backslapping, rather loud type person?
In a way, yes. Yes. Kind of impulsive. He'd change from one thing to the other. On times, do things, out of the clear blue.
You say rather impulsive?
At times.
Could you give us an example of what you would consider some impulsive action?
No, his mind is always working, always going, and he'd be possibly talking to you about one thing, and then all of a sudden he'd take off on something else.
Is he married?
No, he never has been, to my knowledge. It seems that he mentioned to me before, he's never married, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke.
There have been some reports that he came to Dallas from Chicago. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't.
Does he have a police record of which you're aware?
Not that I know of.
Did it surprise you when you heard this morning that he possibly fired the shots which wound up killing Lee Oswald?
Definitely. I was very shocked and very saddened that Jack would even be involved. But I don't know, the fact that he had closed the club so definitely like he did, putting up a sign saying closed and taking the pictures out of the front of the club, and not calling me, notifying me that he had closed. He had somebody else call, but I never got the message.
Now, when was this? He called when to tell you the club was closed?
He didn't call me.
I see.
He had somebody else call me.
When was this?
Friday. When I'd heard about the news of the president, I reluctantly got ready to go to work because I hadn't got the message that he had closed. They'd failed to deliver the message to me. And so I got ready to go to work and got down there and saw the sign on the front saying closed. I drove around the other two clubs. They were closed, but they had no notice.
Does he own two more clubs in town?
No, the other two burlesque clubs that are near there.
I see. Do you know anything about Jack Rubenstein's political philosophies?
No, he never spoke about anything. When we go for breakfast afterwards or anything, the only thing he talked about was business.
Did you ever hear him say anything about President Kennedy?
Never.
Do you know Lee Oswald? Have you ever seen him?
To my knowledge, if I recollect correctly, I saw him in the audience last week.
Lee Oswald in the audience at
Yes.
the club, at the Carousel
Yes.
Club, which is owned by Jack Rubenstein?
Yes.
That would have been about how many days ago?
8, 9.
Do you remember the specific instance? What happened with Oswald in the club? Was he simply in the audience?
No, I was doing a memory routine, and I use about 20 people in the audience and have them call out an object. And then at random, I call the objects back to them, whoever wants their object called first or second, whatever the case may be. And it seems to me he was one of the people, after seeing his picture in the paper, I remember seeing him in the audience as one of the people that gave me an object.
Did Jack Rubenstein speak with Oswald, to your knowledge?
No, I didn't see him. I don't think Jack even knew he was in there.
You don't think Rubenstein knew that Oswald was in the club? It's such a strange coincidence that he would be in the club. Do you think it possible that Rubenstein knew him?
I don't think so. I don't know for sure.
Could you possibly be mistaken about Oswald?
Being in the club?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I remember the face, and I do remember faces.
In your own mind, you're certain it was Oswald?
Yes.
Have you made an effort to see Jack Rubenstein since the shooting this morning?
No, I had thought about going down there now because, like I say, he's more of a friend than an employer, and I did want to see him.
Before all this happened, would you have thought that Rubenstein was the type of man capable of such violence?
No. Jack acted a little harshly sometimes, but nothing like this. I wouldn't have thought he did anything like this.
What do you mean he acted harshly sometimes? In dealing with his employees?
No, when employees and sometimes customers, if they got a little out of hand, why, he was ready to put them out.
Do you know whether he carried a gun on his person as a matter of general course?
Yes. He carried it in a bag when he went back and forth to work.
What kind? Have you seen this pistol?
Yes, I saw it once a little over a year ago, last time I was here.
What kind of pistol was it then?
A little sharp nose, a very small little pistol. He only carried it when he went back and forth to work, though. I never saw him carry it on him, anything like that. Just in the bag as protection because he was carrying the money.
We have a police photograph that I think we can pick up on camera of the accused man, Jack Rubenstein. Let's see if we can get that picture of Rubenstein on camera. We've been speaking with Bill DeMar, a professional entertainer who has been a master of ceremonies at the Carousel Club in downtown Dallas, a club owned by Jack Rubenstein. Bill, there have been some reports that Rubenstein did own, either now or sometime in the recent past, another club in town. Do you know anything about that?
The Vegas.
The old Vegas Club.
Yeah,
is it still in operation?
It was until he closed it because of the president's death.
But so far as you know, he did own that club in addition to the Carousel?
Yes. To my knowledge, he did.
Do you ever recall seeing any unsavory characters, people that you might associate with the underworld around the club?
No.
Let's see now if we can get the picture, the police picture of Jack Rubenstein. It's a profile and a head-on shot of the man accused of assassinating the man who was accused of assassinating President Kennedy. This is Dan Rather in Dallas, Texas. Back now to Walter Cronkite in New York.
A macabre, ironic footnote to the news of this day from Houston. Houston Police Chief H. Buddy McGill revealed tonight that police in his city received 4 telephone calls yesterday threatening the president's life while he was in Houston. The information was turned over to the Secret Service, and McGill said the president should wear his bulletproof vest.
Another is, and apparently this is correct, that one of the Secret Service agents whose job it was to guard the life of the president was killed in his line of duty.
Well, it's to the effect that a Secret Service agent and a Dallas policeman have been shot and killed some distance away from the area where President Kennedy was assassinated, and no other information was immediately available.
There was an earlier report, Frank, from WBAP-TV that a Dallas policeman had been shot to death approximately 2 miles from the scene where the assassination of President Kennedy took place.
This seems to be the same policeman, but that a Secret Service agent was killed in addition.
A Secret Service agent apparently was shot by one of the assassin's bullets as well. Bill left the phone to check with the sheriff's office. He did confirm the death of the Secret Service agent.
One of the Secret Service men traveling with President Kennedy was killed by the gunfire today. We have not received word that any others were wounded.
May report this bulletin that a Secret Service agent and a Dallas policeman were shot and killed here today. They were shot some distance from the area where President Kennedy was assassinated. No other information immediately available from there, except one more point here that this Secret Service Lieutenant Eric Kaminsky has said the assassin's weapon appears to have been a high-powered Army or Japanese rifle of .25 caliber.
And also the fact that one of the Secret Service agents was killed.
The President of the United States has been assassinated, and also one of the Secret Service men assigned to guard him against such an occurrence which happened here this afternoon. I'll repeat that. It's official now. 2 deaths this afternoon at the hands of an assassin. Dallas police have recovered a foreign-made rifle believed to be a .30-30, and the young man is now being questioned by law authorities. And the word just in, a Secret Service man, has also expired. Governor Connolly, who was wounded in the wrist and the left shoulder, is now under surgery here at Parkland Hospital. Bill Hampton, KBOX News.
This is Bill Hampton in the KBOX newsroom. This bulletin just in, a Secret Service agent and a Dallas policeman were shot and killed today. They were shot some distance from the area where President Kennedy was assassinated. No other information on these other 2 deaths immediately available.
A policeman who was cut on the face in the scuffle quoted Oswald as saying, "Well, it's all over now. I've killed me a cop and the president. I'm going to get me 2 more. 2 law enforcement agency officers killed, a Dallas detective and a Secret Service man."
And now here's a late report from Dallas police. One Secret Service agent reportedly was killed in the assassin's attempt. The Secret Service men have been in Dallas throughout the week, paving the way for this trip, hoping that it would go smoothly. But no, this has not been the case today. In fact, it has gone tragically at this moment.
It has been confirmed that a Secret Service agent was killed as well.
We had an unofficial report that he had been killed during the assassination attempt, and now it is official. Not only the president has been killed, but a Secret Service agent assigned to guard his life also was killed by the assassin.
Well, what kind of man was this now dead Lee Harvey Oswald? Harry Reasoner tells us about the accused assassin in this report recorded just before Oswald's death.
Who is Lee Harvey Oswald, who was shot today? This man who Dallas police say killed John F. Kennedy. We don't know the whole story. We may never know the whole story. But we do know that his big passion in life was politics, leftist politics. One man who debated him in New Orleans says that Oswald spouted communist propaganda like a machine. When the subject changed, Oswald was less sure of himself. He faltered. He groped for words. Physically, a fairly ordinary man, a firm jaw, regular features, straight black hair. He was born in New Orleans in 1939. His father died just before he was born. He was the youngest of 3 children. The Oswald family moved several times in the next few years, first to Fort Worth, Texas, then to New York, and in 1953 back to New Orleans. They lived first on this block on French Street, a neighborhood of neat little houses on a broad street. An aunt lived nearby. Oswald was enrolled at Beauregard Junior High School, and his records there indicate that he was a poor student, making his best grades in art courses and civics. Just before he graduated from junior high, the family moved to Exchange Place in the old French Quarter of New Orleans. This is a short, run-down street. He and his mother occupied a small apartment over a pool hall. The rest of the street is dotted with bars, a barber shop, a novelty store. At about the same time, Oswald filled out a personal history sheet in school. He said he had 2 brothers, but he listed no names. He said he was a Lutheran, but he listed no church where he attended. He said he planned to enter the military service or to become a draftsman. He liked reading and outdoor sports, especially football. One question asked if he had any personal friends. He said no. Oswald was only enrolled in Easton High School for about a month when the family moved back to Fort Worth, Texas. But several girls, now married women, who attended junior high school with him, remember him.
He's just very, very quiet and kept to himself. He was in my homeroom, but I don't remember much about him because he wasn't very personable. He didn't seem to get along with everybody, talk a lot.
Benny, he did best in civics and art while he was at Beauregard, and we a lot of times associate an artist with a nonconformist, a person who doesn't dress or act like other people. Did this kind of fit the description of Lee Oswald?
Yes, it did. He was kind of like, well, he was like an oddball. He just didn't mix with other kids in school.
Do any of you ever remember him having any difficulties in class with any of his teachers? Did he seem to get along with all of his teachers, or was he a belligerent person in class? Did he argue with teachers?
No, he more or less kind of wanted to do things for him. Don't you think he was that type of...
What I remember, I mean, he was a good student and wasn't a troublemaker.
He seemed more like a bookworm.
Yeah.
Well, he mentioned also in his history record that he liked to read a lot. Did he carry a lot of books? Did you ever notice him carrying a lot of books, more books than other students, for example?
No, just the usual books to take to class.
There have been a couple of people in the city who knew Lee Oswald after he grew up, when he came back to New Orleans, and they said that they almost immediately knew that it was Lee Oswald who had assassinated the president. I realize that at 14 years old, it's probably a little early to form an opinion, but did the Lee Oswald that attended Beauregard Junior High seem to be the type of person who would commit such an act?
No, but like they say, that's the ones you have to watch, the quiet ones, and you don't know what they're going to do. He didn't seem like it then.
I can never remember him just laughing or smiling. He always just sort of smirked, like a tight lip.
By all accounts, Oswald was a loner. He himself said he had no close friends. The girls didn't remember anyone who was particularly close to him. But there was one young student, Edward Vogel, who went out of his way to befriend Oswald, and he tells about it.
Would you tell us your first encounter, as you can recall? This has been in what, about 8?
It was about 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Tell us about it.
Well, he came in Beauregard's mid-semester, and he had a fight with a couple of boys, and that's how I first saw him. And after the next day, someone had punched him in the mouth that Oswald didn't know, I didn't know, and I don't think the boy even knew him. I think these boys that he had a fight with him put this other guy up to punch him in the mouth to get back at him, because Oswald did beat the other boys. And Oswald was laying down on the ground, and I ran up to him, and I think a couple other boys did too, and we brought him back into school. and washed his mouth off and put some cold compresses on his mouth.
And this is more or less the start of a friendship between you and Oswald at that time?
Well, that's when we first met, was when this happened.
And what type of boy was he at 15? I understand this was about the age of that year.
Well, he didn't seem to mix too well with the rest of the boys or the girls, anyone there at the school. He didn't seem to have any friends, or he didn't seem to be really interested in anything. He didn't participate in any extracurricular activities. He was just a loner, it seemed like.
I'll tell you, one reason I'm concerned about the age of 15, this reportedly is when Oswald first became interested or came in contact with the Marxist theory. Now, did he, at any time during your relationship with him, did he mention anything about his readings of leftist or Marxist literature?
No, he didn't mention anything at all about any politics or socialism, communism, Marxism, or anything, and I don't believe that's true. I don't believe he had any really basic ideas on Marxism or anything at 15 years old. I think that came later, somewhere along the line, because he never mentioned anything like that to me at all.
Now, in talking earlier, before this interview, you mentioned you had been to his house. Could you tell us a little about his home life?
Well, he, when I knew him, he lived in Exchange Alley. I think it was 126 Exchange Place or Alley. It was a small apartment, and it lived above the pool rooms, and in that area there's nothing but pool rooms and bar rooms, and it's sort of almost a Skid Row. It's a very bad neighborhood.
Well, this was before or after his father died?
Oh, his father, from what I understand, died when he was very young, and this was after. I think he had moved to Texas after his father had died. His mother had brought him to Texas. Then he came back here again, and this was his second time in New Orleans.
And he sort of, as I understand it, sort of blamed the world for his problems. Isn't that what you mentioned earlier?
Well, it seemed that way to me after. At the time, I didn't have any basic opinions why he was a little different than most of us. It didn't enter my mind at all. I sort of liked him because he wasn't exactly the general run-of-the-mill that I had known at school. He was a little above them. He seemed to be, at least, even though he came from a poor family, let's say, and he wasn't exactly a ruffian. He just had a little something about him that was just a little different from the average ruffian that I'd known at that school.
Oswald returned to New Orleans in May of this year. In the interim, he had served in the Marine Corps with a bad record. He had also gone to Russia, where he announced that he was going to become a Russian citizen, but he then changed his mind and returned to this country with a Russian wife. He, his wife, and their small child rented an apartment on Magazine Street in New Orleans. And Oswald apparently devoted a good deal of time to the New Orleans chapter of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, a pro-Castro organization of which he was local chairman. Last August 16th, Oswald and an unidentified young man distributed pamphlets promoting the Fair Play for Cuba Committee on a New Orleans street corner. Not too many people seemed interested. A week before, Oswald got into a fight with 3 Cuban exiles because of the leaflets and was charged with disturbing the peace. He listed his occupation at the time as mechanic, and he was released after paying a $10 fine. At about this time, Oswald sent his wife and young child to live with his mother in Texas. Then, in the middle of the night, he himself left, leaving unpaid a half-month's rent. His movements since then are not known to us until Friday morning, when it is known that he was in the building from which the fatal shots were fired at John F. Kennedy.